You're listening to episode number 1 of Overprescribed. Welcome to Overprescribed, a brand new podcast focused on raising America's awareness about prescription drugs, all in an effort to help you, the everyday consumer, live the safest, healthiest, and most informed medication experience possible. My name is Mika Pollack, and I'm your host. I have a background working on post-marketing and investigational drug trials, and I'm really excited about a show like this one because I know there is so much information that is not shared and discussed with you about our prescription medications, and I hope this podcast becomes the perfect forum to elevate those conversations. However, before I get into more about what Overprescribed the podcast is about, I'd like to encourage you to visit our website at overprescribedpodcast.com. There you can subscribe to our monthly newsletter and visit our blog, as well as access show notes and more. All right. As I mentioned, I do have a background in drug research. And while I've worked on many different research studies, I've been most fascinated with the research that focuses on evaluating the safety and the efficacy aspects of drugs already on the market. So looking at drugs to determine whether or not they're safe for you to consume and whether or not those drugs actually work. And it's that interest in approved drugs and the experience of working on those types of studies that helped me to learn about some of the most troubling issues related to our prescription drugs. And as I learned about these issues, I started doing some of my own research outside of work. And honestly, I became very concerned. There just seemed to be so many issues. So I started talking with friends and family about these issues, and I realized that there was so much that not even they knew about. And these were people who had been taking more than one medication for many years, going to many doctors for years, even had more than one chronic condition or illness, or knew someone in that category. And I thought to myself, how could someone so close to prescription drugs not know these things? And then it dawned on me that there was something very unfair going on. Consumers of prescription drugs, over-the-counters, biologics, drugs approved by the FDA, should know these things, but they weren't being told about them. So I started thinking that there must be a way to bring the information to those people, but I thought there's so much that really all of us need to know. From my perspective, it was time for consumers in America to know more about their drugs than ever before, because it seemed to be the consumers, the everyday patients, that were sadly on the short end of the stick. It was the consumers who didn't have a voice. It was the consumers who weren't reading every journal article that came out about a particular concern or safety alert. And sadly, it was the consumers who were often the last to know about a prescription drug issue. And this just did not seem fair. And that led to all the inspiration I ever needed to launch the Overprescribed podcast. And with this podcast, my goal is to hopefully help millions of people in America to live a better, healthier, more informed prescription drug life, a life that can only be achieved by understanding and realizing more about what is and isn't in your medicine cabinet, how it got there, and what we probably need to do in America to make the necessary improvements that'll really benefit all of us. I plan to raise every topic imaginable. For example, we'll talk about not just the opioid crises, but also the issues with other drug classes that aren't getting as much attention. We're going to also do it by sharing relevant statistics and articles, all information that's out there, published, or even being talked about on social media, but may not make it to mainstream media or to your local newspaper or TV news show. We'll also do our best to bring on industry insiders, as well as people from the private sector and nonprofit world who are using their platforms and their businesses to do something about a key issue. We'll even bring on people like you or me, the average consumer, average person, who have their own stories to tell. People who have been directly impacted by prescription medications in life-changing ways. This is the Overprescribed podcast, and we're on a mission to make sure everyone knows that in the U.S., as our rate of prescribing has gone up each year in the last decade alone, with over 4 billion prescriptions being written in 2017, we have some serious health, regulatory, and financial consequences as a result. Consequences so big that unless we figure out a way to make things better and do something about the issues, the problems will only get worse. It's time for everyday people in America to become more aware of the drug approval process, to ask more questions about the medications being prescribed to them. And it's time for there to be no more fear, avoidance, confusion, bias, or hesitation around addressing the issues. This is what the Overprescribed podcast will be about. Hey, before you go, 2 quick things. 1, please take a moment and subscribe to Overprescribed from whatever podcast listener you're listening from right now. This way, you'll never miss a new episode as those are released each week. And 2, if you want to get in contact with us for any reason outside of the show, you can find us on Twitter at _overprescribed. Or you can email us at talk@overprescribedpodcast.com. Again, that's talk@overprescribedpodcast.com.